되는 거
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So just explain.
I even forgot to switch on the mic. Alright, so we are going to start here. I'm sorry for the guys in the video recording. I will add my own voice later on after we do that. Alright, so for a trace table, we just basically mean is to create a table. So tables have rows and columns like as in spreadsheet, and then for each row and each column we will be taking one thing at a time. Okay, so where is this thing? Okay, doesn't want to open up. Oh, it's here. I need to draw this part, so that's why I have to quickly put it in. Sorry, I also have to record, so when you are recording it also becomes a little bit of a problem, because the recording and drawings allows me to write certain things in here. Okay, so you guys are still following. So let's quickly look at, I'm looking at this part over here. We are going to start. So remember our start and end, mostly, the big start and the big end, like there will be one start and there will be one end at the beginning. So all programs must start and they must finish. They must not go on forever. That's just basically what it means. We normally ignore this. It's not our line. It just means that we are starting. So the first line of our code is this one over here. So I'm just going to number them. That will be line 1. This will be line 2. And this will be line 3. So you can see normally we do not give you the numbers in there, but you have to put them in yourself. I'm also going to label the second one. So remember, we don't label the first one and the last one. So line 1 will be this one. This will be line 2. This will be line 3. Okay. The else is part of the line 2. If we make a decision, then we will go here. So we don't label the line else. We call this line 4. And if we don't also label the end, in this case, because it will just either, if it's that or this, it will just stop, and this will be our line 5. So this is basically the lines of coding lines that we will have. Okay, in Thonny, if we want to end something, we will just backspace and then the line will be there. So you can just leave an empty line when we code it later on. I will show you how we will do that one. Alright, so let's proceed with the first one. So when we start with a trace table, we will always have a first column that is for numbers, or this numbers represents our line numbers. I hope you can see. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. So we will always have a first column which will have our numbers in them. So that will be the numbers that we have now labeled here, 1, 2, 3, 4. They will come in this column, right? Then next to numbers we will put in our variables. Okay, so we are doing number 1, we are doing this one over here. Okay, so by doing number 1, we will now see what are the variables in there. Somebody call him here. Yes, come again. I have another class now. Mr. Huyaman. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so variables are like in algebra, placeholders of numbers and things and names. We've talked about variables already. So we have a variable here. I'm just going to underline them. X is a variable and Y is a variable. Sorry, total is a variable. You look at things that are holding or storing something, right? We also notice that we might give you an equal sign, or sometimes we might even give you an arrow. Okay, so if it's not an equal sign, sometimes we put an arrow there. Arrow gets, X gets 22, X equals 22, it's the same thing. So our variable, we also give it here. X is one variable, another variable is total, that is total. Then we have an output column. There must always be in your trace table, there must always be an output column. That's always the last column we want. Okay, so how it works is normally the variables are the inputs, then there's a processing, and then there will be output. So we will always try to say the variables are those input things that we have. Here the X gets 22 is initialized. When we say initialized variable, that's when we already give it an equal to sign, all right, or give it a number and say equals to this. If we just put X, then X is not initialized. X can be now anything, waiting from the user and so forth. So once we have that, I'm just gonna put in some blocks here, all borders, just so that we can follow. All right, so we will always start with first number 1. Let me just make this number center. I think everything must be center so that it's easier. Okay, so we will always start with the first line. How the trace table works, so I will change the colors just to show you. So what we are doing is we are moving from this thing here, we are now putting it into our trace table over here. Okay, this whole code, we are now trying to find out what the answer would be. Some of you already know what is the answer, but we are using the trace table to give us the answer. Trace table will always give us the correct answer. So what this means now, in the first line, what do you see? All right, I see line 1, there's my 1. I see an X, yes, my X. Now what goes there? Now it says X equals 22. So that means in your first row, where there is an X, you put 22. That's your first line. Is there anything else after the 22? There's nothing after the 22. I don't do anything else. I go to the next line. Next line is number 2. So you have to label them also. Number 2, what do I see? I see total. So that means I must go into the total, where total and line 2 is. That's where I am. Not in line 1, at line 2. Okay, so that's where total is. I'm gonna move a little bit this way, because I don't want this row numbers on the side to influence our program here, so we don't get confused. So now I'm at number 2 of the trace table. I must go to total. In total it says put in X plus X. Now I'm not gonna put in here X plus X in this. This is not correct, right? X is already there. X has a number, all right? So this means we must do a calculation. It's equals to, all right? So if I had to do this in spreadsheet, I would have started with an equals to, right? Because it says that's what it's supposed to be, equals to. And then I would now say my X, but my X as a number. So that will be C3 plus the same X C3, and then once you press enter you will see a number appear. That is how spreadsheet works. Same with the X. I would have said equals to, and then I put 22, and it will still make the 22 appear. Okay, so but we don't put now equals to here. We are human beings, we don't work with equals to's, we just work with 22, so we just put in the numbers there. Also here we are human beings, we don't work with those funny things there. So wherever you see on the right hand side where there's a variable, you put what number or what value was at that variable. So here was a 22 plus, hey, doesn't look so nice, let's just write it in again. It will be 22 plus, I'm using my mouse so it's very difficult to write, 22 plus 22, that's what total will get, and the answer is 44. Then we go, is there anything else in that same line? No, we finished everything. Then we go to line number 3. In line number 3 it says, okay, output the total. So what we must do is put on the output, sorry my output is spelled wrong, put on the output whatever is at total. Okay, the last total, this is the last total, not any total before that or anything. So in the output we will put 44. Is that one fine so far? You must respond so I know we can proceed, otherwise.
Oh yes, yeah, the same.
So that one is fine. Okay, so all these things I created myself. All right, now I'm going to, should I do it now? Now I'm going to, since we are done with number 1, let's just also do it in Thonny. So with number 1 in Thonny, it will be as follows. I'm just going to bring up the thing over on this side so that we can now at least see how we code. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so I'm just making it a little bit smaller here so that you guys can see what we're doing. So now we must code this thing over here, the one we have. So now we have to code it over on this side. This one will be our code. So when we are coding, it's just for us to verify, can the computer understand it? On the right hand side, when we did the trace table, was for the human being to understand. So we start with a variable x, and we say equals to 22. That is exactly, I just copied and paste the first line. Then the next one, total equals to x plus x. That is exactly the same, I just copied the second line. Then number 3, you can see here on the side of Thonny, it gives us 1, 2, same as here inside the, where's my mouse? Same as here inside the code, I have 1, I have 2 over here, and I have 3 over here. So you can see the lines also appears there as well. So in line number 3, I have an output of a total. So I did not put begin, I did not put end, because we don't put begin and end in anywhere. I also did not put begin and end in the what you call it, in the trace table. So last one, the output, we told you last time that anything for output, we have another word for output, and the output word is print. Okay, let me just make this one. So this print and output is the same word. We also have print, we have output. What is the other word? I gave you 3 of them. Who remembers what is the other one? Nobody remembers. They mean the same thing.
Right.
It means write, right? That's correct. So we have print, output, and write. So those are the 3 things that mean the same thing. In Python, it does not accept output, it does not accept write, it only accepts print. Some other programming languages does not accept print, it only accepts write. And others only accepts output, it does not accept print and and right. So this is the only first thing that is different from the code that we have here. So only thing we do is we say output and in brackets. This is what we do. Let me just make it big. All right. The print here is the same as our output over here. Okay. And then the total goes into the bracket. That is what we want to output, and that is it. So with Python, Thonny, whatever we do, whatever we type, right, when you click run, that is the green button over here. When you click run, all right, it first asks you to save. So we must always save all of our documents. I'm just gonna make sure I save it in my correct folder, because later on, if we have references, we might use it. 2021 grade 9. Okay, I'm just making a folder so that I know where it is next time I said. So this one is example 12. I'll start now. Let's start with 10 because the other ones were in class. So once you run your code, okay, once that is done and you have saved it correctly, you will see your assistant tells you that, oh, everything looks fine, there was no problems. And you will also see at the bottom here, all right, I just had to bring it up for the video that we are recording. You will notice that that is basically the answer 44 that we have given to the output. All right, so if I remove that and bring our trace table back, you will see that we have also received a 44 in the trace table. Okay, so in the trace table, our output or final answer was a 44. That is basically how it works. So we are going to work between this and that all the time, and so forth. So that is basically what we are referring to now. So I have to quickly go this side. All right, we have 6 minutes left. I think it's enough time to explain the second one, and then we will proceed. So if we want to do more activities, all we need to do is to click on the blank page here, right on top of the example. You click on the blank page there, and a new one will come. So that we can code at the same time different ones. But each one will ask you to save, so you will save each one differently. This one will be example 11, example 12, example 13, and so forth. All right. I'm just gonna minimize Thonny for now, and then let's go back. Bring back sorry about that. Okay, I want to bring back this. My PC is now a little bit strange because of everything that we have. Right, so now we're going to do the next trace table for the second one, and again we will start. I'm going to delete all these answers because we don't need them. Please note that you will need one trace table for everything. Okay, this is actually not good. If I do that, you will also do the same, so let me not do that. Okay, please note I'm also using spreadsheet so that you can catch up. How did Mr. Quad do that again in spreadsheet, and so forth. Okay, the variables have changed, so we don't need those variables anymore. We put in our new variables now. So over here, if somebody can just give me the variables, number will always be there. So just give me the variables. We are doing now number 2. We are now doing question 2 over here. Just give me the variables that I can put in. X is a variable.
So I think you put in if.
Okay, whenever we have this if, I told you that if is not a variable itself, it's a decision that we are going to make, right? So for all the ifs, whiles, and all those things, we have a variable that we will call deck. Okay, we are making decisions. Okay, so we call this deck for if whatever it is. The if is a deck, the else is also a deck. Okay, so for else is also a deck. Okay, if then else, we'll have a deck. So if this is deck and this is deck, both of them are deck, so we can only have one deck in there. So deck is short for decision. All right, decision, you can write it out yourself. So then any other variables that we need to put in?
X again, so I.
We already have x, so we don't need to put in
Output.
many x's. So the last one will be an output, right? So
Yes,
that is
sir.
what we have. Okay, so then all the variables are declared. Now all we do is we need to follow the lines. Okay, can I just ask you guys to disconnect and reconnect again, so that we can at least not be kicked out when I'm explaining it again. So I'm gonna stop the sharing in the class, so just reconnect again on the same link. Okay.